Welcome to the People Data for Good podcast with Adamsen.
Hi, welcome back. I am very excited to have Priszcilla Várnagy of Be-novative here with me today. Priszcilla, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Al. I'm also so excited to be here today.
Well, if you would introduce yourself, because I love the way you show up. I love what you're trying to pursue with Be-novative. So share a little bit about who you are and what you're up to.
Sure. So I'm the founder and CEO of Be-novative, which is a design thinking process management platform. And we are also a Singularity University Labs company because I won the Global Impact Competition of Singularity University in 2012. And since then, I'm contributing to clients reaching their goals on any field from product development to process or organizational development. And with my background in organizational psychology, I'm also prioritizing product features in Be-novative to make sure that we provide a unique way of how to facilitate workshops in a virtual world that engages everyone in the same way and make sure that we have an efficient way of showing the outcomes.
Well, the reason I'm so excited is this notion of design thinking it's out there, but it's a bit esoteric. It's almost a buzzword as opposed to something that is applied in a disciplined, fundamental way, particularly around employee experience and HR in general. So you're actually bringing some discipline and rigor to this in HR specifically. So can you speak to that and how it is going to affect how workers experience their work life day to day?
Yeah, so when we think about design thinking, many times we only think about just a UX process that helps processing better products at the end of the day. But it's more like a cultural and mindset with a set of tools that allow us to think in terms of different perspectives, identify the right problem to solve, be able to involve many people who can contribute to actually solving or identifying that right problem, and empowering them to coming up with solutions and also validating them so that we become sure of how to move forward, what makes sense in that specific context. And when we talk about this, you can also see that this applies not only for dealing with customers, not only for developing products, but also for any kind of processes or thinking about people experience specifically. Because many times design thinking is referenced as the ideation process, but in reality it's not. And specifically the very first phase is about building empathy. And where else we should use empathy the most, if not with people, defining how our people experience strategy will look like in the company, just like as for our customers, similarly to our employees and our colleagues we work with.
In a minute, I want to ask you, why you do what you do and how you got to this point, because what you're describing is difficult. It's not easy, and particularly given the pandemic and remote work. What does design thinking look like, over the last 12, 14, plus months where you're trying to facilitate remotely? Some comments on that?
There are many aspects because of which I am truly convinced that the future may be remote, but it's also more creative. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean if we are limited to a virtual world that we cannot collaborate in a creative way. We just need to design the right path and the journey for people to be able to build on everyone's diverse viewpoints and to come up with a conclusion that everyone is happy with. And this can also happen in the process that we identify how to involve people, break them down into maybe breakout rooms to be able to discuss with each other more intimately in a safe space, any kind of out of the box or seemingly random problems or ideas that they want to solve, and be able to anonymously vote on which one should be the best solution that reflects best to the problem. And why I mentioned anonymously is because I think one of the biggest bottlenecks that makes the process hard, as you said it, is being biased by the source of the idea of the solution or the problem itself. And we have two tendencies that we need to solve for when we are applying design thinking processes. The first one is that if a leader or a manager is involved in a process, first we can be happy because it means that it's taken seriously enough. But it also means that if they speak up, people will naturally have this tendency of supporting whatever they have to say because it is acting nice to support what our manager says. But the second thing is also our personal traits will kick in, how extrovert or introvert we may be. And people who are extrovert, they feel often confident enough to talk about their own ideas and their solutions, maybe for quite long enough. But who are introverts, maybe they will not feel that confident to speak up if they have a very out of the box ideas. So sometimes the solution will reflect how introvert or extrovert you are, or how many friends you have in the company. And that's why it's really important to design this safe space and an efficient process, which we can do similarly as a facilitator in an in-person workshop, but also as a facilitator in a virtual workshop.
Priszcilla, as you're talking, it's dawning on me that you have an uncommon eloquence and uncommon clarity in describing, what design thinking is, particularly around creating an employee or worker experience that has virtue and humanity behind it. And I know in talking with you that it's really important that people find meaning in their work. So can you share your thinking around that and your commitment to purpose and ensuring that people are seen and heard and empowered in organizations?
Yes, thanks for the question. It's basically our biggest motivation and mission in the company, and my personal mission to empower people to be able to contribute to solving problems that matter to them personally, and that matters to the organization or the company themselves. And I think it reflects back to not just design thinking, but thinking about learning in a new way. And my favorite expression is challenge-based learning, because it means that we will become better and develop our skills better if we can experiment with identifying good questions, like good opportunities or problems to solve, and then involving enough people to invite them to this space, thinking together with us, coming up with the right solution for this problem that matters. And once somebody feels that, yes, now I'm in a process, I'm part of a community, or I have connections with whom together we can come up with something that is useful and impactful, and something that will get implemented at the end, this is how they feel they create impact in the company. And in that case, they will constantly feel like, okay, I'm not just creating impact and contributing to something that matters, but I can practice new type of skills that we can say will be the skills of the future, like convergent and divergent thinking, creative or complex problem solving, inclusive leadership, and a couple other ones. And practicing these, people will feel like they know how to strengthen this muscle of making work more meaningful for them. They will know how to replicate this process, how to identify new and new opportunities to grow and help other people around them to grow together.
Yeah, I love it. And there is a book behind me by Jeffrey Pfeffer called The Knowing Doing Gap. So if I'm a listener, if I'm the head of talent or CHRO or people analytics, talent strategy, whatever it is, I'm thinking, yes, everything that you're saying, I'm nodding my head going, yes. At the same time, the ability to do it on an ongoing basis is a significant challenge that I would say most organizations have not figured out. And what you have said on a couple, maybe a few occasions now, is that we create the space. And so I often have said, number one, you have to create the space, get the right people in the room, and have a understanding of where you want to go, what change you want to shift, which requires a real understanding and appreciation of the current state, whether it be not good or good, and obvious clarity on where you would like to go, at least in principle, around meaning and purpose, and making sure that collaboration and creativity take place. So that as a staging, I might be sitting there going, well, we do that anyway, or we do it internally with somebody who is an employee. What is your contention or ideas around the value of an external individual or entity coming in and facilitating that process ongoing?
So the question is, what is the value of somebody coming in from externally?
Yes.
In that case, everyone who we bring in externally will contribute with a different mindset, with different experiences, different context. And when we talk about building creative muscles or the skills for creativity, it obviously one of the most important things, how to incorporate much more diverse viewpoints into a solution. So I think what somebody can contribute with is how to identify maybe the frames of the box that we are thinking in terms of, that we might not see because everyone thinks from a fairly similar point of view. Mm-hmm. And the other one, we could say maybe not even just the facilitator comes from the outside, but what if we co-create, let's say, with our clients or our partners? They also have a pretty interesting point of view that would worth it to get to know much more.
Got it. And I would absolutely agree. I mean, it's seen, as noble and well-intentioned as the initiative might be, employees often have a stake in the outcome. There's biases that are built in. So the value of an external, particularly someone with your background, which I want to ask you in a second, provides this very safe place that people can open up and explore and hear one another. So with that, and we're going to talk about the future of skills and some other things in a minute. But for now, I want to step back to step forward. And can you share a bit about your personal journey? I mean, how did you get here and your background in psychology, and you have chosen to go after this very complex problem? I mean, what's your inspiration? How did you get to where you are now?
Well, I have, although I might be young, but I have quite some milestones in my life. And you might be laughing, but one of them is when I was just 15 years old and sitting in a spa with one of my best friends at the time. And I asked him an important question that was important for me because I didn't know the answer for. And it was like, if you imagine yourself as a grandparent, and you imagine that your grandchild sits into your lap and asks you, hey, grandma, grandpa, what did you do in your life? How did you contribute to the world? What would you be really happy for if you could right now choose anything? So right now you can craft any of your answers. What would you be most happy to answer? And it was important for me because obviously we were before choosing career, before choosing university, where to move forward. And it took me like a couple weeks to craft my answer. And that was if I could contribute to more opportunities for people, for maybe even youth, to discover what are they really passionate about to pursue in life and be able to develop those skills, connections, and resources to make that happen in life, then I would be super happy with my answer. So it didn't give me right away the method. So like I need to apply for economics or psychology or where else, but I figured that I'm most interested in the aspect of psychology, of developing skills, not just for individuals, but what happens when it comes to groups. Mm-hmm. So I applied for psychology, and from the first year of university, I chose a pretty not often research topic at the time. What is the connection of creative self-confidence and developing creativity in groups, and how does it contribute to human well-being? And many of our professors were, it was a dividing topic. Some of them said that it's like too brave to try to solve this question in my first and second year. But some of them were very encouraging, and they said, you know what, this is one of the most up-to-date and professional pieces that I have seen in the past 5 or 10 years. So I really encourage you to move forward with this topic.
Wow.
And
you continue, please. I mean, it's just a fantastic story, and I got 18 questions coming out of it. You go.
Oh yeah, so it was enough for me to really fall in love with the topic, and whenever we had new projects coming up, this was my favorite research topic to go back to. And I loved it so much that when I started working, it was for an innovation management firm. I talked about my passion and topics for the owner at the time. And he said, you know what, if you are so passionate about this topic, I will support that you take a look at the European Union's priorities, the priorities of the Commission, because new project proposal comes out every now and then. And if you see a priority that fits into what you are passionate about, then I will support that you write your own proposal for the next 2 months related to this topic. And that's all what you need to do as a full-time job. To be precise, I was not even full-time at that moment. It was the last year of my university. And I said, this is one of a lifetime moment. So I definitely have to work on something that I figure out. And long story short, we won €500,000 from the European Commission on a project proposal I wrote. And it gave me enough validation that this is not just a fantasy or a research topic, but it has also business potential as well. I also validated it with a couple of companies who I thought could be future clients, and the initial answer was overly positive. So at that time, I had 2 choices. One, I moved forward with the original company I was an employee for, or I quit and I found my own company.
Wow. What a journey. And it's obviously ongoing. And I'm not going to ask you 18 questions out of that. I'll ask you a couple of you, because you said at the outset openly that you're young, and that's your own perception of, where you are in your life. And that's wonderful. I am going to celebrate that in this way, because there's many who have been out there for a long time, who say, "Oh, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been doing it for 30 years," and they have these blinders on. And what I'm finding in younger generation is that there's a courage to create in more appropriate ways. And what I will say, leading into the question, as I often say, that I grew up in the suck it up generation, 53-year-old man here in 2021. And it was like, you're lucky to have a job, just do what you're told and you'll just move up. And where younger people now are saying, I'm high value talent. If you don't treat me well, I'm out of here. I'm going to ask some very basic questions about my workload, my career development, my compensation, how we work together respectfully. And if those aren't answered appropriately, then I have options. Again, the pandemic kind of put pause on worker empowerment because many people went into survival mode. But now as we come out of it, there is an onus on employers to create a more humanistic employee or worker experience. So I want to celebrate that and land with this question. You, from an American standpoint, Californian as I am standpoint, I talk English differently than you speak English. So I'm no doubt people who are listening are wondering, where is she from originally? So I probably should have asked that earlier. So do you mind sharing? Because I think it really informs your worldly perspective and appreciation of diversity.
Yeah, sure. I was born and raised in Hungary, in Budapest. And the first time I got to the Bay Area was exactly in 2011, when after forming Be-novative, I decided that the best place to learn about how these most used innovation methods, just like design thinking, was born and applied in the best way is the heart of Silicon Valley. So I decided to go for a 3-month period for the first time.
Got it. And you're splitting time between the Bay Area and Budapest. Is that right?
Yes, we have 2 offices, one in the Bay Area and one in Budapest. I have to say the pandemic slowed me down pretty much from traveling, but before I tried to balance it out between the 2 offices.
Yeah, so I want to go back to this notion of well-being because it's a popular topic within organizations, particularly given the pandemic, remote work, children at home. Obviously, women have been disproportionately impacted by the work at home experience. For others, it's been really positive, or maybe not others, but for some, it's been great. Others, it's not so great. So this notion of well-being, as it will hopefully stay a priority for organizations. Is that the reason you're brought in, is to help well-being become a sustainable way of being within organizations? Or why are you brought in initially, and who's bringing you in?
Correct me if I'm not answering the perspective of your question you would like to, but what rings a bell in my mind is that I think when we think about well-being, we often not think about every aspect that causes that well-being. Mm-hmm. And my point is specifically how we think about creativity, problem solving, and this way creating impact. Usually we don't reference this enough as part of our well-being. But mm-hmm. My point is, if we have to select just 2 or 3 skills that we build in order to achieve well-being, this definitely would be my top 3, because what creativity allows us is to process feedback in a unique way, which mm-hmm. means that we don't just take feedback for granted, but we have this inner capability of processing feedback against our goals in terms of what we know about ourselves. So we are much stronger and stable and less fragile mm-hmm. when it comes to influences from the other side. from the outside. So I think that is one of the most important things. And the other one is something I said, to have goals and to think in terms of what I would like to do next and where to go next. And it's so important when it comes to well-being to develop these muscles, to have a direction where to go and to be able to somehow get there.
Yeah, as you're talking, I hear you talking about well-being, skills, performance, engagement, org design. There's so many aspects, skills. So, is part of your value in doing design thinking specifically is bringing these formerly disparate groups together to have a conversation around the true experience and the trade-offs within that experience? Is that something that is core to what you do?
Yes, it is, absolutely. The core of what we do is how to open up this opportunity and space, specifically for Be-novative in a virtual, but also in a hybrid, in-person and virtual environment, for as many people as possible to be able to contribute to solving this most important questions, and to be able to collaborate in a creative way towards creating impact in the company and towards identifying what makes sense to take into consideration in terms of growing the company, growing departments, developing products, developing processes, so that we feel that our work and also our life is meaningful.
Yeah, and in doing your work, I imagine you identify personas, and some of those personas would potentially be, correct me if I'm wrong, people of diverse backgrounds. And so understanding their experience and responding appropriately. So in the end, there's a diversity, equity, and inclusion value proposition in this as well. Is that correct?
Yes, it's very correct. We believe that design thinking is a cultural experience, and it takes every aspect of how the company is working. So our personas come from C-level management on how to co-create the strategy based on the insights of the right people working at the edges, or also about business development, how to identify new market opportunities that we need to consider and how to prioritize them, or obviously with people managers, people experience on how to develop a more engaging strategy, how to design new talent programs, or we also have people from the innovation management or innovation department, product managers developing new products and services, or even UX people on how to develop the customer experience. And even sometimes you wouldn't think, but we work with nonprofit organizations and educational institutions as well on how to create an ecosystem, not just inside, but also outside of the company, how to work together with the community. Sometimes even marketing managers are empowered to create this type of ecosystem and find the best voice to engage their community.
Yeah. As you're talking, I imagine, the listener going, yes, yes, yes. And then it also is the case, what I'm hearing is that we're applying slow thinking. We're like getting space. We're like really thinking deeply about certain problems and opportunities. And so the question here is, what does it look like day to day, week to week, month over month? And I imagine the answer is it depends. But is this something that is happening as a project with a start and stop over 3 to 4 weeks? Is this an ongoing way of being that you're developing within an organization where a group is meeting once every other week, or what does an actual project look like for you, or engagement look like for you? It depends.
I wanted to say something different. Obviously, it depends, but when you asked, does it involve slow thinking? I wanted to say yes. In some terms, it involves slow thinking in order to incorporate much faster thinking. And what I mean by that is a symbol came to my mind. I don't know if you have seen this GIF that somebody's trying to push like a barrel really, really hard, but it has square wheels. And somebody passes by and asks him, why don't you just change it to the normal round wheels? And the person replies back, I don't have time for such a thing. So I feel like this is what we can do with design thinking processes. Yes, maybe it takes 1 hour to get the group together to come to a better conclusion. But based on that 1 hour of getting everyone together, we will have the entire project go on much more efficiently and much faster than how we would do it without that 1 hour of collaboration. Or we can do like even a 6 weeks of co-creating a new business opportunity or a new product offering. But after that 6 weeks, we will have a validated new prototype in our hands that we will surely know that if we build this will bring in X or Y specific business impact. And if we don't do this 6 weeks, maybe we would experiment just with a handful of people 2 or 3 years. So yes, we can go without it, but we will reach much further if we collaborate a bit more.
So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for that distinction and metaphor, because I think it's spot on. And I also am wondering, as you think about the future, not only the distant future, but really over the next 6 to 12 months, I'm hearing you, I'm listening, and I'm like, well, every organization needs you. Well, people should be crawling over themselves to just, get you or someone like you in their organization to help, which then invites the question, why isn't that the case? What are the barriers to doing this work? What are your thoughts there?
Fortunately enough, in terms of the platform, I'm scalable. So they can just sign up to Be-novative, and we are very happy to have me and my team as well. But joke aside, I think really we need to think in terms of strategy, how to start design thinking processes. Yes, I agree, it's not that easy. And the way it's not easy is because we need to synchronize the company strategy, project management styles, make sure that we have the right time and resources to move forward with the results, because if we don't do that in the beginning, it might be too late by the end of the workshop or the process. And it all contributes to how people will feel efficient or successful at the end, and how they will be encouraged to do it next time. So it takes a little bit of planning in the beginning, and also involvement of senior management, because this is how we can make sure that they have a buy-in for providing the right resources, and to just treat this initiative as something that is important for the company.
Mm-hmm. And what I'm hearing too is that the ideal future state is that you're creating an ongoing capability, because there's always going to be shifts and changes in an organization. So this is not a project with a start and stop. Ideally, it's something that, okay, we're going to create a process by which to formulate talent strategies, by which to measure and manage these strategies over time, and make sure that we have the right people in the room to ascertain what's the best way forward. Is that a correct statement, that you want to build the sustainable capability?
Yes, absolutely. This is very correct. And how we suggest to maybe start the first step is sometimes I say that starting a design thinking journey is similar to running, that at the end, maybe you have in your head how good it would be to run a marathon, but you don't start with running such long distances right in the beginning. And if you just concentrate on the first sprint or the first two occasions going out running and experiencing the feeling, then building up from these sprints, you will eventually get to even running the marathon. So when it comes to design thinking processes, maybe starting with just the design sprint, which is like 5 consecutive steps of identifying the problem, defining it better with empathy, relying on more insights, and involving more people to ideate than you would naturally would, and also empower them to evaluate the solutions they come up with, then visualize somehow how this solution will look like in a real world, and ask for feedback from experts in the company or from mentors or even from clients. And by the time they get to the end of the process, they can identify maybe with a retrospective meeting of what went really well, what they would need to continue or do differently next time. And this is how, if we just concentrate on one project at a time or one process at a time, then what we experience is many people really falls in love with the process and will identify that, okay, hey, I also have another problem on my end or in the field that I work. Can I also apply the same methodology to solve the problem I have? And this is how it may scale inside even large organizations, that many people get encouraged after they participated in such a session to open up the same space for their colleagues.
It sounds like an engaging, fun, worthwhile experience. And obviously I'm projecting and I'm saying that, and having been in similar forums, I found that to be true. I just also am kind of frustrated on behalf of the whole community that it hasn't become a norm when we talk about employee experience design and talent strategy formulation or people strategy, whatever organization calls it. Many of our listeners are rooted in data and analytics. And as these groups are formed to ideate and look at the future and ways to get there, it invites the question on what data is actually being sourced to inform their decisions, and also how to make sure that they're learning whether or not certain processes and experiences are delivering the desired experience or return. So can you speak to the data and analytics that you see relating to the process that you're describing? Is that like core to what you do? It's like, hey, we have to go after this, and this is why it's
very
important.
Core.
Is it? Yeah.
It's very core. There are certain elements of design thinking that relates to data. In the beginning, we need to capture the right insights and analyze them about what are the patterns that we can identify, like what are the groups of insights that seems to be relevant for our target users, let them be clients or let them be employees of the company, and which ones are the most important and urgent to take care of. Once we can identify it based on just feedback and rating from the right clients or target users, then we can also define the problem much better than without these insights. And what it helps us is to make sure that we are thinking about and build for the right problem to solve. So I think it's one of the most important aspects of design thinking. But the other one is how to identify the solution itself. So it's not just about who talks, as I said, loudest enough about their solution or most in terms of time, but we need to give every single person the same chances for getting their word across the crowd. And this way, if we have maybe simultaneous small groups thinking together and everyone can write simultaneously, it means that everyone has the same chances of getting their word across. And since the process is anonymous, at least in Be-novative, when participants vote on the impact and feasibility matrix or any two criteria that we want to get their feedback on, it will eliminate this bias of who shared the idea, how many ideas they shared, and it's purely the data of exactly the same number of people. So there is an algorithm that makes sure that every single idea is evaluated by the same number of people randomly. And this way you can trust the numbers much more, because it couldn't happen that in many other forums you have a lot of, let's say, comments one after each other, and you ask people to vote them up and down. But this is not a statistically correct data, because what happens, people just go there, they maybe randomly read the top 1 or 2 or 3 comments, decide whether they like one of them, give them a like. And then if you have a really enthusiastic person, then maybe they scroll down and randomly from the middle or the bottom, they read 1 or 2 more comments. But it doesn't mean, I haven't seen anyone yet who would say, oh, this comment number 67, this idea should be actually number 48. I will vote it all the way up to 48. So that's why it's so important to use the right algorithms and to get relevant feedback.
Well, and I'll also add the right process, because what you're saying with my geeky self, I'm like, that's super cool. You know, from a researcher analyst perspective, I like there's a lot of discipline, and to the extent you can, you're removing a lot of bias for reasons that you cited. And I just want to highlight that, because if you're a non-analyst, if you're a head of talent again, or somebody in HR or out, it's like having a disciplined, non-biased approach to generate insight is going to inform appropriate action. I've seen a lot of non-professionals utilize inexpensive survey instruments to create their own. Sometimes it works reasonably well. Other times it provides false positives and information that might not help get where they want to go. So there's a lot of risk in that. And so I want to celebrate, what you have just put forth. Yeah, we have time for.
If you don't.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say one more thing, that as you said, surveys, if there is an open-ended question of, is there anything else you would suggest we do? Something like this, then what you as an analyst can do is just compare the number of similar suggestions, but you cannot show one of the suggestions that somebody said in such an open comment to rate how important or how impactful they would see that specific thing. And just because not a lot of people thought about it, it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be important or impactful or even feasible from the company side. So this is an important feedback that we can also add.
And we're obviously speaking to your unique platform, right? And we're going to spend some time in a different forum actually going through some aspects of that platform, because again, the more I learn about it, the more excited I get, not only for you specifically in your firm, but I believe the discipline of employee experience, HR strategy, people strategy has a long way to go to get really good at incorporating data and analytics and truly understanding the current experience, designing intentionally the future experience, and making sure that there's the measurement instruments in place to making sure that it's actually delivering as promised. So with that, we have time for a few more questions. And yeah, I want to go back to something that I asked before and just flush it out a little bit, because I'm really interested to understand who is the one bringing you in to do this work right now. Is it employee experience? Is it HR? And I'll reframe the question a little bit. Who do you think should be bringing you in? Because this is something that I've seen get lost, in the cracks, so to speak, in between functions. And there's no clear owner of employee experience. There's no clear owner of applying design thinking to craft the worker experience or whatever the challenge might be. So who would you like to see bringing you on to do this type of work?
I might sound first disappointing with my answer, because my answer is really anyone, but to make it more precise, anyone who is ambitious enough to solve a real problem and to involve many people to contribute to finding the best solution and to work the way out, even if it's not trivial, to get that solution implemented in the company. So someone who is a change maker, someone who likes collaborating and working with people, who is inclusive and involving in their leadership type. Usually they have a young inner spirit, but it doesn't always reflect on real age. And many times they are, I would say, mid-managers. Sometimes they are high, senior managers. And why many times they are just mid-managers is because they have the passion of changing things, but also the capabilities of going down to the very bottom of the organization and talking to people and empowering them and involving their feedback. And they are hands-on as well to be able to act on the results.
That's actually a fantastic answer. And you and I have spoken before, so I was hoping you would go there, because I wanted to make it clear that this isn't just an HR initiative. This is just not a center out initiative, that this could happen in small business units with teams and most anyone in the organization. So it can be commissioned by a people leader, not just someone from HR as a service provider internally. So a couple more questions, and because I want to really understand where you hope our world is going to go, because and again, you and I spoke before, so you want to work with companies that want to make a change in the world, that want to make a change among their workers, that they're going to bring more meaning and purpose, and have a truly not only say the right things, on paper and put on walls, but actually deliver a virtuous, empowering experience. So do you believe the world is trending that way? And what type of organizations, apart from what I just shared, that you want to be working with? Is there a specific industry or geography? Share more about that, please.
Yes, I absolutely think that we are going towards a much more creative world, where we humans can drive the wheel and really plan and design the right processes, right products, and not just in terms of, this is my personal perspective, not just in terms of what drives only business values, but social impact, what drives more well-being for us humans, and how to work together with machines the best way in order to make them do and create this type of world that and future we want to be a part of. Because at the end of the day, we will be able to automate everything, and we will be able to outsource to machines, to algorithms, every type of either repetitive job or any analyzation, thinking that they are better at. But what will stay in our hands is to envision this better future what does it look like? What types of algorithms should it have? What types of criteria do we believe in? And I believe that many of our jobs will shift towards that direction. Even if we look at the World Organization forums or any of the big four's analyzation of what does the future skills look like that are demanded from not just young people applying for jobs, but for any of us working at companies at this right moment. We see that the top skills include creative problem solving, collaboration, convergent and divergent thinking, and these are the same signs that that our role inside the company will change, and we need to be prepared for that.
Yeah,
I think it's also a good news because, as I said, I'm really convinced that this will create an even better environment and a brighter future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm going to ask this one question before I ask you to share how people can learn more about you and Be-novative. And it's this, is that there is a risk to not taking this approach. Can you speak to the risk? I mean, because there's a lot of organizational leaders, people leaders who like, hey, I don't have time to create this space and take a disciplined approach. But there's inherently, again, a downside risk of not putting round wheels on the wagon. So can you just highlight a few of the risks of not taking this type of systematic approach?
I think it should be obvious for most of us. Maybe we are sometimes involved in our own way of thinking too much, not to see that the pace of acceleration is so fast that it's very easy for small and large companies to become irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And if we think about just the original Fortune 500, it's less than 10% that is still alive today. Mm-hmm. So if we don't design for the future right now, then the future might not include us.
Well, again, yeah, I'm excited about what you're doing. It needs to be more widespread. And so congratulations on what you have achieved and what you continue to achieve. So Várnagy, how can listeners learn more about you and Be-novative?
My favorite place to be connected is on LinkedIn. If anyone looks for Priszcilla Várnagy on LinkedIn, I'm very happy to connect, change messages, have a chat about anything that excites you. And besides, our website is www.be-novative.com.
Well, Priszcilla, thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for being with me today. Hopefully we can be together here in the Bay Area before too long, and you be well and all the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the great conversation. Hope to talk next time.
Absolutely. You be well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the People Data for Good podcast with Adamsen. To find other podcasts, videos, upcoming events, and to join the People Data for Good movement, please visit us at PAFOW.net.